is this a phenomenon in his brain, or is it just that he's figured out how to hack effectiveness and productivity? Like, I imagine that I could be just as good mentally as Elon Musk and Tim Ferriss and these savant people if I just knew how to streamline my time into the right directions.
But do you believe that's possible?
I think that that's easier for me to believe than some people are just genius. I mean, some people are just geniuses, though.
You are listening to our podcast, Do You Have a Minute?, in which a guy and his daughter dive into deep discussions about life's most profound and mundane questions. While we know we don't have all the answers, and possibly none of them, we open our minds to new perspectives, and most importantly, we have a good time in conversation. Join us as we explore the unknown together.
So I have a question for you.
Yep.
What would it take? What would I have to do in order to get you to be disappointed in me?
Goodness. To earn disappointment. How could you earn disappointment?
What?
That's a bigger question. That's like a minute conversation.
That's too big of a question. You can't just jump to the most extreme thing I could do.
That's huge. There's nothing extreme we could do. It wouldn't be an extreme thing. It would be a disappointing thing. Extreme things are not disappointing.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what a disappointment be. That
you don't even know
more
what
question about me than you.
Means.
Yeah, what does that mean? It's like depressed. How could I get depressed? I don't know. I don't know how I could be disappointed.
I see.
Disappointed. Yeah. Let's not talk about that.
Okay.
Put that
we'll
on the
revisit
list.
that question another time.
Man, the important thing now is phenomenal issues.
Okay. Tell me about that. Phenomenal means that, what does phenomenal mean? It's amazing. It's different.
What's
unexpected.
The term? It's not necessarily awestruck. Is it awe? Awesome is phenomenal?
Phenomenal. Yeah.
Awesome can be phenomenal.
I think awesome is real close to phenomenal. Could maybe use them for the same thing.
Yeah. So if it strikes awe, but the reason it strikes awe, that it's beyond that. I mean, you can have things that are not phenomenal that are awesome.
Okay.
But phenomenal means it's unexplainable.
Oh, okay.
It's beyond scientific proof. That's the phenomenon, right? A phenomenon is beyond scientific proof.
Yeah.
I've been reading Darwin stuff, just for the fun of it, don't you know?
Yeah. Which book did you read?
It's about Darwin. It's got his origin of the species and all that stuff in there, but just one thing that it said about him, which was he was trying to define the phenomena, how this world exists. He was raised so let's start out with this conversation.
Okay.
He was raised as a theologian. He went to seminary, divinity school, was raised in that thing, and went on his trip at 22 to 27. He went on his trip on the Beagle around the world for 7 years, studying nature and geography. But he went knowing that there was a definition of the species that we were built. I forgot what word they used to describe it. Creationism was what he was thinking. That's what he was trained under.
Okay.
And then he learned from that he had it. But he came up with his view of, the phenomena. It was phenomenal how creation happened. So he was looking at that, and then he found these scientific proofs and found evolutionary transitions. And so he went through the evolution and said, well, no, there's a scientific way, there's a scientific path we can follow to create this. And so creation is out the window and evolution is what occurred. So he just jumped completely to the non-phenomenal answer, right?
Yes. The most rational.
That's my understanding
so rational
of
is
what he
opposite
did.
Of phenomenal. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
In this circumstance.
Yeah. So the quote in here, the rational thing, he asks why questions, not only about geological features and animal life, but also about political and social situations. It's about life in general. And it was his ability to ask profound questions and his perseverance in trying to answer them that would eventually make Darwin a great scientist. So as a scientist, he said, I'm not going to believe in phenomena anymore. Phenomena, it's not something I'm going to do because we can rationally identify the science behind it. So we're going to follow the science. And then I ran across something that Jordan Peterson said yesterday, 2 days ago. He was in Washington, D.C. with the Make America Healthy Again conference type thing. It was out on the mall, Washington, D.C. And he said they came up with the structure that we're a society based on stories. That's what our social environment is. We follow stories. And he says they had that right. But then there's the statement that you're supposed to follow science.
Okay.
But the problem is, and he said from the philosophical standpoint, you can't follow science. Science is not followable.
Yeah.
Science is a hypothetical thing. You're proving things. Science is facts. You can't follow facts. You have to follow a story. And there is no story to science.
You can't follow if there is no story.
Yeah, you have to follow a story. Science, you can't follow science. And that's what Darwin has done. He's followed science. He said, yeah, we can follow science. Let's do it. If you follow science, it doesn't pan out. And I don't know. I'm not to the conclusion of that yet. That's the middle of the conversation. But those two things kind of match in regard to phenomena.
Okay.
Charles Darwin and everyone else in the age and in this age is concerned about the phenomena that's out there. Unanswerable questions.
Yeah, I think that's a fun thing to be concerned with too. It's philosophy. Unanswerable. Anything that's unanswerable, you can imagine what the answers are, but you'll never know.
Well, unless you scientifically prove some piece.
Right.
and you've got to continue experimenting, and you get experiments on it, and it works. And when it works, you say, oh, that worked, that's great. And you get to a point. Can you erase all phenomena, though?
Can you answer all of the questions and therefore have
answer
no
all the
phenomena
questions
left?
Right. Is it possible? I think that's what people are trying to head towards. They say, well, if phenomena exist, we should be able to answer all of it. And they want the answer to all of it. And if you can't answer all of it, then you just have to call it mythology. And that's a belief system that you can believe in or not. And I choose not to believe in it because I know where I stand. I stand on science.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting hints of being reminded of something we had talked about before.
Right. But you can't remember what it was.
Let me see if I can remember. Unanswerable phenomena, things that happen, just serendipity. I was listening to that. Well, that's just in the episode that we just published.
Yeah.
Is
unexplainable things happen all the time. And we've talked about magic. So phenomena is magic. And I know we've discussed that before. What is magic? Magic is just, it's operating by rules we don't understand yet.
Right.
And true phenomena is operating on rules that we aren't even close to trying to understand.
Yeah.
So that's why you call it myth. It's mythology. Now it's a story that can never be true because we can't prove any part of it, but it's a phenomena.
Yeah.
And in our finite world, we tend to want to eliminate phenomenon from our thoughts.
Yeah. This is a question that I was going to ask you at some point is there any true acts of God where the humans, there is no scientific explanation for it. It's something just happened because a supernatural being willed it to happen just on the spot. Like, I'm going to make this happen, and now it happened, and that's it.
You can't explain through physics. Things you can't explain through physics and physical world experiments.
Yeah. So is that what we're talking about?
Okay,
is those kinds of things?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay.
And your question is to whether they exist or not.
Yes. And
right?
Is that your question too?
No, in my recent review of phenomena, there's a book that was published in 2017. The Freedom of Information Act and all the declassified information that's been happening in the last 10 years or so. Phenomena is what it's called, but it's about remote viewing and the ESP experiments and everything the government did from the 1970s to 2013, 2017,
Okay.
that they're continuing to work on. And one of the conclusions of that book is that there are things, look, from 1970 to now, we've landed rovers on Mars. We know everything about Mars. We've gotten, very large supercomputers. We can do all kinds of things. And we know the universe much better than we know inside our own mind. And the ESP things they were trying to figure out in the 70s, we still don't know how it works. But they say it's worth study. The government still has their classified documents into it, but everything has been declassified now that she's written about and put in that book in 2017. There's proof that it happens. We know it works, but we can't describe how it works or why it works. So extrasensory perception, these are the phenomenal experiences. They're there, they happen, you identify it, you can
experience
it,
you can
indicate it.
Document, maybe, what you're saying.
You can document it. Yeah, you can document it. It happens. And they talk about, there's one experiment that you can, you shake atoms inside of a system. They get joined. I forget what the word is, but they're together. So if you vibrate one, it vibrates the other one. And the distance can be across the world, hundreds of thousands of miles apart from each other.
I've heard of that.
You shake this atom over here and it shakes on the other side of the world. There's a connection.
Yeah.
So we know that's an act of God. That's a phenomenon. They don't know why it happens or how it happens. And any of their tests for ESP and trying to remote viewing, and there's the other movie, Men Who Stare at Goats.
I wanted to watch that, but I never got around to it.
Remember that? Yeah. So it's about those experiments in the 70s.
Really?
In the 80s, where they were trying to use extrasensory perception and identify where things were, just dealing with the issues of the mind that you can document, but they can't corral it. They can't say, here's the formula, here's the way to train people on it. They think, and they thought at that point, and they still think, that it's a latent possibility in everyone's brain, but they don't know how to get to it yet.
Oh, okay. So like in the Phenomenon movie with John Travolta.
In the movie.
Where he says...
John Travolta's movie.
He says, where is he at? He's being tested by the FBI.
Yeah.
And he says, I'm only doing what everyone can do. Like what I am doing is possible in everyone. This is before he found out that it was a tumor causing all of it, but the tumor was really just activating parts of his brain that were inactive before.
Yeah. And that's a storyline, of course.
It is a story. It's not science, but that's the idea, though, isn't there?
But the science behind it existed, and that's why they wrote the movie.
Yeah.
And that's why they said, possibly there's an aneurysm that could happen, or that would have tentacles that would activate pieces of the brain.
Right.
Potentially fatal. It would kill somebody, but before they died, they would have all kinds of amazing connections that no one else had. Because we know we only use a small percentage of our brain anyway.
Yeah, is that
the whole brain up there
scientifically
isn't
proven?
Connected?
I believe
it
is,
is.
But
yeah,
I'm just checking to make sure that there wasn't anything recent that said, actually, that's all false. Because
we use 99% of our brain. I don't believe anyone has ever said that. and that's these extrasensory perception studies and everything else are trying to say, how can we get to use more of our brain? And part of it is just by using it. We gain capacity as you use more.
Yeah.
You use more, you can use more.
Do you think we once were using more, or have we always used just 10%? Are we getting dumber?
Back when we were all geniuses.
What?
Back when we were all geniuses. Yeah, we did use more at that time. I don't think there was ever that time. No, that's never been there. It's possible not to use them. Politically, there is a group of the society that uses 7% of their brain, and then there's another group that uses 3% of their brain, and you can decide which group is which.
Yeah, you can decide. So
it's about like the people that believe in myths, and You can always complain about someone not using their brain. You're not thinking right, not thinking correctly. Why do you believe in mythology? Or why do you believe in globalism as opposed to nationalism? Strength from within. Or why do you have to solve every large problem out there first?
So where were we going before I derailed?
John Travolta's statement was that, it's latent, and that's what the study came up with too.
Okay.
What she wrote about.
When was that study?
2017 is when she wrote the book.
Oh, okay.
And it's called Phenomena.
Yeah. And when did the study? Do you know?
Oh no, it started in the 70s.
It's old.
It's all of the classified
Not
documents
old.
of the government. Yeah. Not older than me.
Not older than you.
Old enough. So they started then trying to figure it out. And Uri Geller is one of the names that was involved in that. And he's been around for a long time. And they had, she goes through all the iterations of how it was magic. So I wanted to identify magic. She talks about the magic of it at the time. Right now, it's still magic. It's a phenomena. Phenomena is just magic that you don't have an answer for. And we don't have the answers for it.
Yeah.
Like Area 51 and UFOs, and space aliens, we don't have answers for UFOs.
Right.
If there were answers, then they would be in classified documents or declassified at some point. Those phenomena just exist. And that has to be that's something outside of our understanding. So whether you use the term God on it, acts of God, and you'd have to if you have a belief in a God or a deity, a ultimate designer, that designer would be God that put these things in play. Telepathy can occur, and you can also do it, like bending spoons and things. PK, what is that called? Psychokinesis?
Telekinesis.
Telekinesis? Psychokinesis. I think it's...
Well, in the movie Phenomenon, they called it telekinesis, but that was when he was moving it without touching it. If you bend a spoon while you are touching it, maybe it's called something different. I don't know.
Yeah. So how he broke the glass. Now those things happen too. You can do that. The experiments are that telepathy happens. You can talk to someone with their brain and get them to do the things that you need to do. You got these magicians that go on stage right now and they show that they printed something in the paper 2 weeks ago and got the person in the audience to say exactly what was printed 2 weeks ago inside an envelope that's been sealed, whatever. All kinds of amazing, really interesting, phenomenal stuff that, they're doing it as a stage presentation. They're manipulating it somehow.
Right.
So you just assume it's a manipulation. It's magic. That he knows what he's doing. The magician knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
But then there's those things that even the magician doesn't know what he's doing. The person who can do ESP and a remote view and get the exact description of property across the world and define what's there and walk inside. They even listed the names on the desks and names on files that are on top of the file cabinet. And they get exactly all that. They were there. They remote viewed it, but they have no idea how they did it either.
So
that's what's phenomenal.
You're describing experiences that other people are having, and the only
right.
You only know this because they said they were telling the story.
Because it was written in a book from declassified documents.
Declassified documents, right. Based on testimony of these people.
Correct.
It's not provable that they didn't know, that they didn't set this up. It's just you're trusting.
And that's why it's still a phenomenon. They demonstrated it. It's demonstrable because it's there. They did it, and they don't know how it happened. They don't know how it's done. They can't control it. So that's why it can't be relied on. It's unreliable. It's still a phenomenon.
Yeah. So what I'm saying
but
is idea. It still seems fake. Like these
as a magic trick that someone
is manipulating
in the government
still.
Manipulated and gave him the answers behind the scenes, and
Yeah, even
Yeah.
if the magician didn't know, like maybe something, I don't know if you're talking about magicians. I'd have to read the book, I think, to really gather
Well,
what you're trying to
no,
say,
they
but
even the government experiments, this is the CIA, it's the FBI and the CIA, it's intelligence gathering.
because
The intelligence community was trying to use these for the benefit of the military.
yeah, are they
And
still
magic was involved.
trying to, do you think?
Yeah, I think they are. And that's what she said. The book presents they still are. It's classified. Everything that's done in that realm is classified still. But they've determined that you can't control it enough to make it available to everybody.
To make it
It's
useful.
still a covert. It's a quiet, still a not covert necessarily. It's a hidden part of the government. Area 51 type stuff.
Classified still.
Classified. So because you can't, they can't get it. There's no breakthroughs in it. Still, there's no breakthroughs, and that's what she said. As of 2017, when she finalized the writing on the book, we've broken through all this other stuff. We know more about the universe than we know about our mind, and we still can't figure out our consciousness. So that's the question. We talked about that in consciousness and unconsciousness in that conversation. This is part of the stuff we don't know, and that's part of the stuff that's still just an act of God as far as we can tell, because you can't create it. You can't define it. You can't even identify the process by which it works.
So do you think the author of this book believed in these kinds of things before she started investigating it? Or I'm just trying to...
Now,
You don't think so?
No, she's written a lot of other books. She's a writer, whatever.
I mean, so...
I believe the book was written, the recent book, it was written because of the documents that were opened up.
Yeah.
Now it's Annie Jacobson.
Right.
Is her name. But the other things by her, I don't know.
This doesn't have when she wrote Area 51, but
Yes, she's written about all
on
these
her website I
Clear
can't
War,
see like when it was written, so I have to...
the Pentagon spraying, First Platoon. So she's a historical writer, whatever. But it's not. She's not a novelist. She's a research writer,
investigative journalist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's been writing these types of books since 2005 when she wrote Terror in the Skies, Why 9/11 Could Happen Again.
Yeah.
She was
24. Just Nuclear War, just written in 2024. Area 51 was in 2011.
It looks like maybe she
Surprise
was on
kill vanished.
flight 327. I don't know which flight that is, but she says it says here that she has firsthand experience to make her write this book. But
about the terror in the skies, is that
yeah,
what it was?
about 9/11.
This one. Why it could happen again.
Yeah, and I mean, so
yeah. So I mean, she's an investigative journalist.
she is.
As she knows, she's writing based on documents that she's uncovered or that have been. She requests that they come out, and they've been able to summarize them. So I saw that as a recent work in regard to phenomena because I've loved the movie since when was the movie written? 96, I think.
Yeah, 1996. Yeah, I think it's a 96.
1996 that they did that movie. The other thing is I watched it recently and I fell in love with the movie again.
Mm-hmm.
And the theme song, the final song, do you know what that was? Eric Clapton.
Yes. Well, because I had to finish the movie this morning because my schedule is so stupidly packed.
You had time
that I watched it in 3 sittings.
It ends with change the world. And that's the point, I think, of phenomena of the movie. The point of the movie is we all can change the world and we need to. It's our responsibility. That's why we're in this conversation and operating this way, because you change the world the more that you do. He says, well, 2 or 3 books a day, why are you reading that? Well, I have questions. says, well, what do you read? Well, what are you interested in? What do you want to know? Pick that up. Pick up what you want to know and start. But, it did say, if you try to get into the conversation, you start learning stuff, even like Darwin. I mean, it's dry reading, and it's hard reading to get through all of the technical stuff. And it's not one of the hardest books. I guess I'm really interested to get into some of the hard books that they say, the tomes that you can't really understand unless you study it for a long time.
Oh, yeah. I listened to a reading of Paradise Lost, like a section of it. And it sounds like Shakespeare to me. And Shakespeare's hard for me to understand.
Well, I've tried Paradise Lost. Milton, is it Milton's poem? I think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
But those epic poems that are 400 pages long.
Yeah.
That's what you need to do, though. And you can gain information. I mean, he learned Portuguese in 20 minutes by picking up a dictionary and learning key phrases.
Yeah.
But that stuff works too. Tim Ferriss talks about how he learns languages. That way he'll go to a new country. He'll go somewhere. And in 10 or 15 minutes, he can gain a working knowledge of that, the things he needs to know in order to operate.
Well, Tim Ferriss is operating off of like 35% of his brain instead of the usual 10.
Yeah, he has more brain operating. And the reason he does is because he's been practicing it for 40 years.
Yeah.
He started out different than everybody else.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Well, he was depressed. He had problems, but he tried. He focused on things and he kept focusing, and he would find a different way to look at it. And that's what he does. He can pull a language apart. Elon Musk is the same. Let's see. I wanted to compare Elon Musk to John Travolta's character. What was his character's name?
George Malley.
George Malley. Yeah. And George Malley, how he said, thousands of ideas a day. So he's got just holy crap ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff that don't make any sense. And he's just trying to explain to people all this stuff. And says, if a mail delivery would just deliver on this route, it should be done by 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock. Be done with the mail route. And you can get 8 more cars in your parking lot if you just arrange it this way and no one will bump into fenders.
Mm-hmm.
So, all these ideas that come to his head. Elon Musk, as he was talking about his lifetime growing up, his childhood, and he was in a abusive household. He didn't grow up comfortably. He grew up in abuse.
Yeah.
But he said, you wouldn't want my life, though. He says, this is no fun. 1,000 ideas a day and I can't do anything about it. That's the problem. So he defined it the same way. From the time he was a kid, his brain was working more than everybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
He had that issue being the autistic type of person he is, the savant.
Yeah.
And maybe he's autistic, probably is, but the savant part was connected more than anybody else. And he said, I just thousands of ideas a day and I couldn't do anything about it. And, you just have to work. It was hard. It was a hard life to grow up in.
Yeah, I imagine that would be hard.
And he's still in that same boat. I mean, everything he does now, he's doing more than any other individual could do. He's inventing the engines they're putting on SpaceX rockets.
Yeah.
Well, it's not something he's got a committee's working. He has the idea and says, now you guys work on this. This is how it's going to work. Put it together. And they'll come up with a problem and he'll solve the problem for them and say, that's it. Now get back to work. All of his engineers rely on him. Everyone's relying on him for all kinds of information.
So is this a phenomenon in his brain, or is it just that he's figured out how to hack effectiveness and productivity? Like, I imagine that I could be just as good mentally as Elon Musk and Tim Ferriss and these savant people if I just knew how to streamline my time into the right directions.
So do you believe that's possible?
I think that that's easier for me to believe than some people are just genius. I mean, some people are just geniuses, though, because
they have a brain aneurysm. It's got tentacles connecting pieces that we don't have.
Well, and their focus is better on, especially on things that they're interested in. Like Albert Einstein could only really figure out all of his mathematics because that's what drove him. That's what was the thing.
That's what's wrong. He got an idea, and it's kind of like they talked about Charles Darwin. He asked the right questions, and he stayed with the questions until he got some answers.
Yeah.
And that's what Einstein said. His whole benefit was the only reason he had any advance beyond anyone else is because he sat with a question until he came up with some answers.
Yeah.
He didn't get bored with it. He was determined to stay with the problem, with the idea.
Right.
And the longer you stay with an idea, the better off you're going to be at getting to some useful answers, right answers. Even if you blow up a few spaceships to start with before you can actually get one to land. And once you get your rocket ships to land and you can do it every time, then it's going to be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
They're all reusable. And that was strictly only Elon Musk. No one else thought that could happen, but he knew it could happen. And he said, let's just make it work.
Yeah.
And now it works. It's just common. Now you say, of course it works.
So I don't have the focus or the attention span.
Yes.
Or something.
Yes,
Like
do.
I haven't hacked productivity and effectivity
Now,
to be able to
now
do
you're
that.
disappointing.
Now I'm what? Did you say?
You would be disappointing. Now you're disappointing.
That because I'm admitting
Because you believe you don't have the capacity.
I mean,
George Malley's statement was, everyone can do this, and you just need to do it. Come up with something you're interested in. The way they presented it in the movie, everyone in the city, in the town, no one believed him. No one wanted to follow him. He didn't have any disciples.
Yeah.
There was, even Lace was suspect of him. She loved him, but she didn't try to be him. She didn't try to say, teach me how you're doing that. No one in the movie and no one in his area said, well, okay, I'll take your challenge and I'm going to try to learn what you're learning. I'll try to do it as fast as you. Help me do it. No one asked him for help.
Yeah.
They were all saying, you're just an idiot. I mean, it was a UFO, right? You're something major happened to you and we're afraid of you. They were all afraid.
Right.
Then he was trying to explain it to them, at their library thing. They just kept badgering him with the questions about the physical world. And he says, that's not what's important. Find out something about the book that you like. Lady Chatterley's Lover, how he said, yeah, I read it 3 times. It's a story about how to deal with women. I don't know. I haven't read it. So, but he had an explanation as to what it was. And if you read it, whatever you read, like Darwin, I'll get through the Darwin book. We talk about books that I read. I like to understand what it is I'm reading in the book and then be able to talk about it when it's done. And you do too.
Yeah.
You do that.
Yeah.
So yes, you're advancing. You're getting closer to a fuller understanding, using more of your brain each time.
I'm getting closer, but I don't have it now. And that's...
Right. And will you ever get it? We talked about that receding horizon. Is this not a receding horizon?
Yeah, I think this would fit in that. But do
It'll
I have
keep
enough
going.
years to get it anyway? to even reach the partway goal that I've got for myself?
And I think that's the same question that the government and military and anyone who's thinking about these things on the higher level, CIA, they say we have to be able to figure this out, but they haven't been able to yet.
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't think that they've stopped working on it. You can't stop working on what consciousness is and how brains work with each other. Napoleon Hill said it years ago in Think and Grow Rich. The consciousness that we share consciousness, transubstantiation, I think is what it is. We've talked about that a few times. He wrote about it. He knows we do this. He could demonstrate it. He doesn't know how it works. Says it just works.
Yeah.
Consciousness, unconscious information is shared between individuals, between people. You get a group together, there's another brain there. The mastermind group works. And he says, he doesn't try to explain it. The government's tried to explain it. How does it work? but they know it works too. They just don't know how it works, so it's still a phenomenon.
Right. Right. So phenomenon is just something that you haven't been able to explain yet.
Right. It's magic.
But not necessarily unexplainable, right? Because
Well,
because we haven't been able
assuming
to
that it's
yet
physical.
doesn't mean that we will never be able to.
If it's recordable and demonstrable, it exists, then it has to be explainable somehow. We just don't know yet. What were some of the things that we had no idea about in the 50s? Well, supercomputers. There were no computers in the 50s. Maybe there were some, but nothing. I mean, the libraries we hold in our pockets.
Yeah.
There's no way. 30 years ago, you couldn't explain to people how that would work.
Right.
But everyone has it. If you have a question about what phenomena means, or how many books Annie Jacobson wrote, they're all here. 9 of them. and
you can read it right now.
We know the year they were published. We can look at the synopsis. We can probably get cliff notes on every one of them. And in 10 minutes, we could know the basis of every book that she ever wrote. And it took her 20 years to write them.
Uh-huh.
So it's just that's that incredible ability. We've got more than anyone else ever had. And we just need to use it.
The potential for productivity and effectiveness is higher than ever. But so many people are still not, like, we haven't increased the actual productivity and effectiveness, have we? We've just increased the potential for it.
As long as there are Democrats in the world, we never will.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. You got to get people. It does take effort. Yeah. In order to be productive, you have to put effort to it.
Yeah.
And regardless of part of your thought process, if you're dedicated to work on it, you will advance. I think it's one of those automatics. If you water a plant, it's going to grow. You put water onto a biological organism,
it's just going to.
If that water is good for it to grow, it will multiply. It won't ignore the water, the fertilizer. If you can fertilize it better and you fertilize your mind better, your mind's going to grow better.
Right. It's got no choice but to do that.
Yeah. And even that direction, it's a beneficial cycle. It's never going to degenerate. If you keep feeding it the right information, you can't learn less by learning more.
Uh-huh.
You can't get dumber by learning more. And the only option you have is to get smarter.
Well, what if you
to make a connection
are learning? What if what you're learning, what you're reading is trash?
Like romance novels?
Yeah, or fiction presented as fact, or conspiracy theories that really can't. I mean, okay.
Well, ESP is a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, but
it's a theory still, and you could conspire against something.
Right. So I mean, like
Area
things
51,
that are like
UFOs, they still exist. They're there. They're real.
What if you? Yeah,
we just don't know what they
are.
Like,
really, what if you spend all of your time in
those ideas, like Charles Darwin spent 7 years out on a boat, and he spent the next 40 years, actually, in his life, he was sick his whole life. He could only work 3 or 4 hours a day. That's the other thing I think is amazing about him.
Mm-hmm. Because he did so much.
He had this disease they couldn't figure out. His wife took care of him in his house. He never left his house for 40 years, and he could only work 3 or 4 hours a day. But the volume of work he did in that 3 to 4 hours a day was huge. It changed the world. It actually did.
Yeah.
Changed everything. And he never spoke. He wasn't building rocket ships. He was just thinking and dedicating his life to answering the questions that he knew. And whether he answered them right or wrong, that's not important. What's important is that he dedicated his life, his mind, to the questions that he wanted to answer. And he came up with a plausible solution. And that plausible solution has been now discussed for the last 200 years almost.
Yeah.
180 years now. And it's still being discussed, and it will be discussed for 200 years in the future. Whether it's true or not, that's not the important thing. The important thing is that he got he made an effort and he changed the world in what he did. And we can do that. That's Eric Clapton wrote that song, Change the World. It's a beautiful song. He wrote it for this movie though. Well, he didn't write it. It was written by 3 other people. There's writers for the song, but it was recorded for this movie.
Yeah.
In 96.
Okay.
So the whole point of that song and that verse was to promote this idea that we can change the world, and we have it latent in within us if we just operate with it. Just read whatever you're interested in. Do it.
It doesn't matter what you read as long as you're spending time doing it.
Yeah. Figure something out. And when you start on one path, then it'll build others. I don't think that Elon Musk that he had all of his ideas when he was a kid. I mean, he said it, thousands of ideas. I think that's the term he used. He said thousands of ideas. It was hectic.
You can't
It was
possibly
a hard
use
life.
all of those.
But he's now having 10,000 ideas and not just thousands. So it's still expanding. It's growing. He's not slowing down
So
in anything he's doing.
the question that I keep trying to ask, and I'm using all of the wrong words, is there anything that you could spend all of your time reading, like a genre that you and is watching the same thing, or
playing a video game.
Yeah.
With Minecraft.
Is there anything
Ruin you.
that would actually not help you grow?
And start examining that. What could be some possibilities?
Like
I have my
examples
knee-jerk
of-
response to it.
Examples of like content to consume that would not help?
Yeah, try to identify something that would not help. I mean, Minecraft, I figured that out really quick.
You did, because you have history of...
But there's a brand new Minecraft movie that's coming out in March or something that I saw. That's an advancement on Minecraft.
Yeah.
I think Minecraft is just stuck in its 64-bit world or whatever.
Is making money for somebody. That's what.
Yeah, I think it's got other places to go. Even if you're just a kid, a 42-year-old kid sitting in your house playing Minecraft, you're advancing with that. You built a castle in the air. Now put a foundation under it, and there'll be a thought, there'll be an idea, a concept.
Yeah.
So
I mean, okay. So
what else? What else might someone do that would be detrimental and just cycle them in a non-virtuous cycle?
How about couch potato? Just you spend all of your time on Netflix.
Soap operas. Well, the soap opera writers, they do that. Netflix.
Yeah, and now that we have streaming services where you could pull up a show and watch all 17 seasons of it all in one row, like
binge watching.
What are
so
you
could be there for 2 weeks.
How are you going to grow through that time? Can you?
I still have my very favorite episode of NCIS. and it's mind-blowing. It's mind-opening. It expands. I mean, they had that one. It teaches everything.
In that one
it's
episode.
Like phenomenal. That one episode. It's the one where he's on the ledge with the guy that's going to jump. Who is the medical examiner? Starts with a T. The other one.
The younger one?
Younger one.
I can only remember the older one's name. No, it doesn't start with a P, does it?
His last name or his first name does. Yeah, that's just in my brain. But he's sitting on the ledge talking to the guy that's going to jump. And he tells them, I studied for my medical exam and I didn't pass. I failed it 3 times. He says, well, what'd you do then? He said, well, I passed it. Well, did you tell anybody? I haven't told anybody yet. It's a medical doctor.
Palmer.
In the office.
It does start with a P.
Palmer, yeah. They were listening to him on the radio. I mean, he didn't know he had a transmitter on the box, but they were listening to everything he said. And he told them, he said, this is why I love all the people I work with. He's trying to tell them, this is what you should live life for. Live life for these things. And he said, I passed my medical exam. I'm a medical doctor, but I haven't told anybody yet because I just like who I'm working with. I don't want anything to change.
Huh.
That's just a very pivotal moment in the whole lifespan of those people.
Yeah.
But they had a lot of them. That's the reason you write soap operas. And so you have those pivotal moments you can talk about.
Yeah, that's season 14, episode 13. It's titled "Keep
Yeah.
Going."
There you go. I think in my brain I thought it was the 13, so it's 14, 13.
It was a 13.
See, now I know my favorite scripture in NCIS.
1413. NCIS 1413.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the one I'll reference. But I've cried all 3 times I watch it. I mean, you can't watch that show and not cry. You can't watch Phenomena and not cry.
Right.
It's amazing. And you become bigger each time you go through something like that.
Okay, you remember that movie that Richard made with his friends?
Yeah.
The Pizza Man or something
Pizza
like that?
Pizza Man. Yeah.
Pizza delivery. I don't know. Is that something that you could watch and learn something from?
You could learn how to dance with fairy wings and watch the credits at the end. I don't know. That's the same thing. That's like
I'm just trying to think of the dumbest thing that I've ever seen in my life, and that might be
it's like Napoleon
there,
Dynamite.
But
Napoleon Dynamite is amazing because it was a movie like Pizza Man.
Yeah.
It was written that way.
Yeah.
Done that way.
So I think what we're coming around to, I mean, outside of the phenomenon and conversation, it's a different conversation now. But I think what you're saying is unschooling is how we should all be doing it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's what you're interested in.
That's how we operate after elementary and secondary school. After college, even you stop learning. No, you don't. You continue learning. You continue growing.
Yeah.
With everything that you read and see and do.
Read 3 books a day, and which ones do I read? Well, what are you interested in? You read what you want to read.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what it is. If it's Minecraft, read Minecraft. If it's Python programming, read Python programming.
Okay.
I mean, get an advancement in something, whatever it is that you're wanting to do. If it's general conference reports, then read a general conference talk and make a connection. And maybe that's the key that I use, is I try to make things match. I try to connect them.
Yeah.
I mean, if I just read the book on Darwin, read about his life, but didn't pay attention to anything else, I just wanted to see what he's like. And then when I put that down, it's a silo all by itself. No man's an island. No silos exist. It connects. He connects to what Jordan Peterson said 2 days ago directly. I mean, it's an answer to what his whole life lived that way. And from Jordan Peterson's recent statement, his whole life was down a track that wasn't going to get him to success.
Mm-hmm.
But he did succeed, and he wrote it and lined it up. And everyone who's believing that and on that same line, on that same track, Jordan's saying that track doesn't work. And here's why. And so maybe they'll start pulling off that track. They'll say, well, let's look at another track. Let's get off of this track onto the story track. And maybe Jordan Peterson's wrong. Who knows? We don't know. We just have to keep learning, moving forward.
Yeah.
And from our discussion a while ago about debt and banking is not the right path to be on.
No.
And I'm trying to figure through capitalism is the right path. Free markets. You have to free that market instead of enslave that market with debt. You free that market with capitalism. A capital-based society as opposed to a debt-based society. That works. I don't know why it works. Don't know how. It's still a phenomenon.
Uh-huh.
It's phenomenal.
Where did we get to with phenomena, though? Is
it possible to find it? And can you answer a phenomenon?
Can you find the reason it happened or how it happened, is what you're saying?
You make it, yeah, and then make it usable.
Make it happen again.
Make it effective. Make it so that it can be a process. Set it into a process that now it's latent in everybody. Let's make it not latent. Let's put this recipe in place so that everyone can use it. And we've got the first part of the recipe. Unschooling is where it starts, right?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Of course.
So start with unschooling. Let's start with that, with the 3-year-olds and the 10-year-olds and the 14-year-olds in unschooling so that they start that mindset way earlier in life. And then when they're 55 and 80, they're going to have a much better time at figuring out those answers and getting the process set.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we're delaying our brain growth by using public education.
Definitely. The conveyor belts, the assembly line.
Yeah.
And that was, it was a big advance in the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
Make an assembly line. But even now, what Elon Musk is doing about building cars? I haven't studied a lot about it.
Tell me about it.
Molding machines. He's got a machine that will create the whole car body at once. He's gonna mold the frame at one piece instead of welding it together. Don't put it on the assembly line. Just mold the thing.
Okay.
Make it done. The machine is, I don't know how big. Football field big or something? No, not quite that big.
That would
Huge
be pretty
enough
big,
that
but it's got to be big.
You
though,
put a whole
in order
car
to do
inside
that.
of it. You put a whole frame of a car inside of it, and you mold the thing all at once, and then it's one solid piece. And then you take it out, and you put the tires on, you put all the engine parts inside of it, the battery, hook it on, and there's some word they use this for it. But that's one of the factors that's built in Texas, is with those huge molding machines. So you don't have an assembly line anymore. You're gonna create it, and maybe you can do that. 3D printers, you can print an engine or a small engine. You can print things with all the moving parts inside of it.
But what about all of the jobs that you need to have? What about all of the people that are going to be unemployed because one machine is going to take care of something that it used to take 50 people to do, or 500 people to do, or whatever?
Wouldn't it be a cool problem to solve? There is solutions for that problem.
Mm-hmm. Just increase everybody's intelligence, and then they can all create their own companies. Yeah. Well,
but then who would buy the stuff being created? Who's going to buy it?
Each other.
If everyone's creating their own stuff. Yeah, right. It's the agrarian society, so we have to take that agrarian idea and build it out. Universal basic income is the first thought, and I think Elon has talked about that too. Because if you get everything so that the assembly line's not there, trucking, if you make trucking automated, then your income is going to be, all the transportation. This strike on the East Coast, if we were automated in it, and it can be automated, now the technology is there, it just has to be built. There wouldn't need to be any people on those docks. The 4,500 dock workers, they don't need to be there.
Yeah.
And the products can still move. The supply chain still works just fine. And it works better. The cranes don't break. No one drives their forklift into the ocean. So he said, if the economy is working well enough, then everyone can get a universal basic income. And that's putting it, we were talking about that in the political thing. The level point right now might be $30,000 a year for everybody if you level the world. If you get advancements high enough, then the level might be $300,000. And you pay everyone $300,000 a year income because you need that to buy the products that you have. And when you're buying all the products you have, the machines are making it for us. The machines won't take over. You've got that dystopian world of saying that the computer's going to kill us all.
Yeah.
How 2001, A Space Odyssey, where Hal decided to hurt everybody.
Yeah, because that was just the best thing for everything.
Yeah, it makes the most sense. Get rid of the humans. So, but a computer's not going to decide that.
Maybe.
That's a conspiracy theory. You could spend your whole life worrying about that conspiracy theory. So that may be something you could cycle to zero.
That's just in your opinion, though, because like, what if I actually study that and then I become like really brilliant and effective and productive, and I reach all of my goals because that is what I decided to spend my time doing.
Okay. You decided that, fear. Okay. And I think it's fear really that I'm pointing to, and not necessarily space science or computer learning.
Yeah.
If you're afraid of computer learning and you say, because due to fear, I'm going to stop every advancement in computer science, and I'm going to take my whole life. And we're wondering if Darwin I don't believe he operated on fear. He was looking for possibilities. He was still looking in faith that he's finding the next step. He's building it. Einstein built something new every time. We weren't afraid. Is there a story of someone who was afraid of trying to keep something happening? 1984.
Yeah.
George Orwell's 1984. They were afraid of humans, so they had to change history.
Right.
They had to rewrite history so that you couldn't learn anything. They were trying to break it down. So that's a dystopia is based on fear. Brave New World is the same concept too.
Yeah. Okay.
You've got to stop life, stop advancement. No more advancement. We want to put price controls on all advancement because it's detrimental to us. And that's a base of fear. That's what causes the dystopia. And the only place for a society like that to go is cycling down. So is fear really the element that ruins everything?
I think that makes sense to me, because if all and that's kind of like where, what am I trying to say? If all you're reading and watching is things that make you more afraid, then you're not going to grow. You're going to shrink. You're going to go into yourself. People that live with anxiety have a very difficult time in just doing regular things like everybody else. Everybody else is managing to get by. But if you've got anxiety dictating your feelings about things, then you're gonna, you can barely live.
That's
you can
depression
barely operate.
And that's misery. That's a miserable, depressive life.
And that's fear. You're afraid of everything. You're afraid of what could happen and
Anxiety.
What is happening and what has happened before. And
so end of the world projections, things like that, the
apocalypse,
World War III, or the Revelations, what's talked about there, the world burning like fire.
Yeah.
You could be afraid of that. You could study it all your life and be afraid. And should you be afraid? There's whole society that's saying you should be afraid of that. And because of that fear, you should join our society.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and you're not going to do anything if you're not afraid. If it doesn't concern you at all, then what kind of action are you going to take?
You're going to take progressive action, and it's going to be the right kind, the kind that makes you fireproof. Fireproof even just the movie, Fireproof, that Kendrick brothers put together.
Yeah.
You're going to progress. You're not going to be afraid of the marriage. You're going to fireproof the marriage by doing all the positive things that are needed to be done for 40 days in a row. You don't get afraid of, well, what's my wife going to think about this? You proactively work on it. Work on what your wife's going to think about this.
So I'm eating this candy corn, and I have mixed in this container candy corn that came from a small regular size bag and candy corn that came from like a mega bag or whatever. They taste different from each other. They're the same company. They must have been made in different factories or something.
Is it different in sweetness? What's the difference? One of them has cinnamon and the other one doesn't?
No, they're
more sugar, less sugar?
It tastes like the recipe is different.
So something different, an ingredient, not necessarily cinnamon, but some ingredient is different between the two.
Something, like they added maybe like the wax content of the big bag one is just a little bit higher, or I don't know, something where
consistency.
In the mixing process, it came out differently, and the little bag tastes way better than the big bag. Just saying.
Maybe they had to put it in the big bag because they could never sell it in little bags. People would stop buying little bags. Even thinking about that, you could figure out the difference between those two. But if you spun on that for a while, we're talking about dedicating your time to something senseless. Like what's the actual chemical composition between these two? So you take 10 of them and go into your chemistry lab and identify all the pieces, or take it to the mass spectrometer, right? From NCIS.
Yeah.
Put it in there and find out everything that's in there, all of the ideas, all of the chemicals that are part of it. That can be done. Or you could just call the Brock's Candy Company
Yeah.
and say, what's the difference between these? How many recipes do you operate with? And maybe there'll be someone that'll tell you. And then say, that's proprietary. I can't share that with you.
Trade secrets, right.
Right. But there, if you're afraid of it, so, and let's just use that example. If you're afraid of candy corns, you may say, I'm never going to buy a candy corn again because these two tasted different and I'm not going to do it.
I did have
And
a
then you
bad
start talking to
experience
everybody.
last year with a bag of candy corn. It was
Really?
way, I don't know if it was expired or their machine malfunctioned when they made that batch or something. I don't know, but I was afraid to purchase more candy corn this fall.
Okay. So was it hard or was it acidy? What was the?
It was gross. It wasn't. It was sweet, but there must have been some bitterness to it, where I
Something
couldn't
bitter.
eat more. Something. Yeah. It wasn't. It tasted maybe rancid. You could say maybe they tasted
Could have
rancid.
been rancid. Yeah. And maybe it was some of the oil got rancid. It was made with it, and then it was on the shelf too long.
Yeah.
I love candy corn that's been 2 years old and 3 years
You
old.
love that.
Yeah, that's amazing. The only thing wrong with your candy corn in your dish right now is it doesn't have the nuts and the raisins and the everything else from the trail mix.
I'm eating it alone. I'm eating it neat.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, candy corn neat, no value to that. It needs to be in a trail mix with cookies, even. I mean, I think if I built my trail mix, it would do well.
You should have signed up for the farmer's market. Just
right.
Sell your mix of. You'd probably sell some of it.
I could just name it a certain thing. This is whatever. It would have to be not mountain mix. It has to be something.
Not mountain mix.
Yeah, mountain mix is where you use that for the base. I mean, that's the base.
Yeah, what you could use something about cow pies, and I mean, because considering you're living on a farm, you don't have cows to make pies anymore. But
something really gross to make. Yeah. That way and it's got to change the world. I got to change a word to make it fit. Because we've talked about words don't mean what they're supposed to mean. I got to find a word that everyone's going to say, that means this, and say, no, it means this. Try this. This is what the word means. And they'll say, wow, it does mean that. You change the world. That's what we want to do. Every action we make should be to that point. So that's what this conversation is about.
It's changing the world. We actually are just talking about Eric Clapton's song.
Eric Clapton's song just summarizes the whole point. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking about unschooling. Unschooling will change the world. And it'll change the world because of the process it puts you on. And it's the process he's talking about that George Malley promoted. But I don't know what happened. He was a light. And I fell down, and now I just want to read.
Yeah.
Develop yourself to want to read without having to be knocked down by a light at midnight.
Or without having to have a brain tumor.
Yeah, or have a brain tumor. Of course, they did that. Grey's Anatomy had that issue too. They went to the same idea, and I don't know what season it was in Grey's Anatomy where Patrick, who was the guy? Duffy. Patrick Duffy was that brain surgeon, and his sister was the brain surgeon.
Oh, Dempsey.
Patrick Dempsey.
Yeah.
His sister was a surgeon too. She came into the hospitals after she came in, and then I think he was killed off already. He died. And the sister she had all kinds of epiphanies and insights that could solve things that no one else could solve. And they found out it was a brain aneurysm that was in her, and they had to get it out. They had to stop it. And so she had to go back to be a normal person. But for a while, for a couple of episodes or 5 in that season, she could solve about anything. And she would, it was part of connecting parts of her brain, the same story.
But it was killing her.
Connected things.
And so she had to choose.
It was healing her. it made her, it was killing her, but it made her a genius for a while. And so that savantness, and she had to mourn losing that, but staying alive.
Yeah.
So the concepts are there, and I think they're real. That's why they're in stories. And these are the stories that we live by. They bother people, though.
Yeah.
Normal people, people who don't want to think, who just want to skate by life.
Yeah.
Why are you wasting all your time trying to, I don't know, whatever, figure out what Darwin had to say? You're not a scientist. Who cares what Darwin had to say? And nobody does. Few people care about that, or what Napoleon Hill had to say and how it relates to Darwin.
Yeah, well, that's a specific line of learning that maybe doesn't help you get to whatever goal you've decided you're trying to reach, whatever lifestyle you've decided is ideal for you. Like, not everybody is going to be into reading Darwin. Maybe they want to read Stephen King's books instead and learn and grow through that avenue. I mean, you can't really force an interest in something. You can practice being interested in it, but it's either going to take or it's not going to take.
With that individual. So you're going to have communities, back to our community discussion, communities that have an affinity with you in your discussion. And there's going to be those that are on totally different mindsets that love to cook. And you'll have people that don't love to cook. And how every answer comes from a perfect recipe instead of every answer comes from a perfect philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
So that's why that's the level 2 communities that'll exist. You'll have your clubs. You'll join the clubs you have an affinity with.
I think an important thing to learn from that right there is that everyone is going to be growing in their own way from what they're doing. We're all different. And so we've got to stop being so degrading on other people's stuff. Stop looking at the people you know and be like, they're wasting all of their time watching Grey's Anatomy instead be like, I wonder what they're learning from that. That's probably something completely interesting and going to help them out. Like, I don't know.
Unless, and probably they would come up and say, it was a fun show. I had no idea what it was about.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe
you have plenty of people that are just brain dead watching it, like they read a book. They'll read the words, but it didn't mean anything to them. They didn't ask any questions during of the book. That's why Martin Adler wrote that how to read a book and why. Yeah. If you don't have questions, you're not going to get anything out of the book. You're going to read the words, and the words will pass, and you'll get past that page, and it didn't mean anything to you. You didn't comprehend it. You didn't internalize it.
So, are you saying it's okay if we pass judgment on these people that aren't thinking about what they're learning?
No, but are they progressing just as well? So that's the question. If you're just skating through life, if you're skimming everything, and you're never thinking deeply about it or making it, if you don't try to improve your life, but you're just skating through life, are you productive
and effective?
Say you go to work. Are you productive and effective? You're going to work every day. You're a UPS driver. Say you drive a UPS truck and you get the products there every day and you do it for 30 years of your life, but you don't listen to anything while you're driving. You listen to the radio, change the world, but it doesn't mean anything to you.
Oh, yeah.
You don't do anything with it. You got your radio running on and you deliver the packages and you're very successful at what you do and you get to the end and you retire. But did you have a successful, productive life? And you die 6 months after you retire because you're just bored now. I mean, what do I do? I got nothing to do. Was that life any less lived than Elon Musk's life, building 17 different companies, getting us to Mars?
I think this is the question that I was trying to ask when I was asking, is there anything you could be reading or watching that would make you not grow?
Right.
So
So what's the answer?
Well, the most generous answer would be, of course, that life was worth living. Of course it was.
Right. And judgment, you shouldn't judge that person. Say, well, he didn't do as much as I would have done.
Uh-huh.
If he were smart, he would have listened to podcasts when he was on there in his truck instead of radio, chewing
Right.
gum for the ears.
But we do that to ourselves. I mean, I do that to myself, actually. I don't know if everybody does that, but I mean, it's something you could do to yourself. I sometimes just want to listen to music when I'm at work, but then I think, that's not going to make me any smarter. So I'm going to fight my way through this podcast that I'm
You
listening
judge
to
yourself.
and see what I can pull out of it.
You issue a judgment and say, be better than you are.
Yeah. I'm judging myself for just wanting to, after I've completed my work, I sometimes just want to sit and watch a movie on my phone. But then I'm like, well, what about this book that I'm listening to, though?
You know, and stargazing, I like to just sit there and watch the stars and do nothing. But I do have a star chart in my house, and I'm trying to identify more and more constellations. There's so much you can learn by looking up. And there are 2 meteor showers, 3 this month, that I'm going to go out and try to find, plus the comet. So I'm doing a lot with the sky out there, even though I don't have a telescope.
Yeah.
It's a part of life, and I'm learning by it.
But it's okay that you don't bring out your star chart. It's
And
okay
on the
that you
13th,
just sit and enjoy it. What's on the 13th?
13th, look to the east. After the sun goes down, you'll see the comet. They say that's going to be the brightest side as it's heading down. You're supposed to be able to see it right now for the last 2 weeks.
We haven't seen since the Stone Age.
Yeah, since 80,000 years ago. The one that they know, it's on this cycle that came a long time ago, 80,000 years ago, and now it's coming back through. So it's supposed to be on, but I looked this morning and I couldn't see it on the eastern horizon. But it's going to be on the western horizon on the 13th. Just after the sun goes down, it'll be on the back side of the sun. It's ahead of the sun right now, and in the next 2 weeks, it's going to go behind the sun, and you'll be able to see it on the western. But maybe the mountains are too tall where I'm at, and we won't be able to see it. Maybe I better go up on top of the mountain on the 13th.
Yeah, chances are the weather's going to be nice still.
Yeah, so maybe I will do that. Maybe I won't. I mean, it doesn't matter if you see that comet or not.
Right.
They've got pictures of it.
Maybe not going to be a life-changing experience, but maybe for someone, they will see it, and that'll inspire something big.
But I think it's going to be just as cool if I do end up getting a telescope someday and look at the rings of Saturn. That'd be amazing as anything.
Yeah.
And they're up there all the time. It's just, right in the middle of the sky. You can look at it anytime.
Waiting for you to see it.
Waiting for the right telescope. Right. So that's just an interest of mine that I enjoy rather than listening to music or a radio show. Actually, I do turn the radio on once a month, probably. When I'm in the kitchen, I'll turn on the country station while I'm loading the dishwasher. And when the dishwasher's loaded, I turn it off.
That's your daily allotment of country music.
Yeah, my monthly time. Music is allowed while I'm loading the dishwasher. Other than that, I don't have any other radio that's turned on. And I used to have speakers all over the house and put music on all the time. I used to run with music, but I don't.
Yeah.
No music. That's not a phenomenon. That's a choice. So you make your choices, and we need to not have judgment of people with how they're operating in their phenomenal life, because every life, George Malley was living a phenomenal life. He was given something that allowed him to think better, given an aneurysm that made him see light, and
it was a phenomenon. Truly,
best way you could describe it.
Until they found out what it was actually.
Yeah, scientifically, well, and again, that's just the story, and that was the story in Grey's Anatomy. There probably are scientific studies about that, though. Aneurysms that cause genius for a minute or a time.
Yeah.
Idiot savants do exist. And I just haven't read the story. We don't know. We haven't studied that.
Yeah.
but it could be studied, I'm sure. And you can create more of an idiot savantdom in your head by focusing on it for a while, or a long time, and finding the right number of books to read a day.
Or even just the right number of pages to read. Or,
Yeah, number
you
of
don't have
pages,
to
or
read a lot, just some.
the way to increase your photographic memory so that you can look at a page, you're speed reading, look at a page and internalize that. What I talked to a guy a week ago or so, that he said, I can read 1,000 pages a day. I can read 100 pages an hour. He was a technical, what did he call himself? He read through the rules and the laws, technical editor of, in a hospital setting. So he said, I had to scan the documents. So I'd read it. And he said, I know what I'm looking for. So, and I said, do you verbalize? How do you speed read? How do you read through that many pages in an hour? He said, I don't know. You can't verbalize it. He said, my brain looks at it, I look at it and I know what I'm looking for. And so I look at that page, and if there's an anomaly, if there's what I'm looking for is there or it's not there. And so he said, I'm not necessarily comprehending everything, but I'm looking for what I'm looking for. And he was successful at that career. That was the whole career that he did. And so I'd speed read that way. But if I need to comprehend it, I do have to slow down and read each paragraph. But there's got to be a way speed reading that you can speed it up. And I've found the limit that I've got right now is I'm voicing everything. I have to read it and say it before I comprehend it. You've got to be able to look at something, comprehend it without having a voice.
Yeah.
But I haven't studied speed reading courses or anything long enough to find out if that's what they do. And if that's not what they do, then my course needs to create it that way.
Yeah. Well, that's a skill that I think that you can get if you work at it. I don't think that you have to be any particular type of person to be able to read and comprehend without.
It's a latent skill inside all of us. We just have to work on it.
Yeah.
Probably like every other skill.
Like every other one.
Like everything that we can do all of it. Just start. The Sylvan method. That's part of the phenomenal. They mentioned that in this phenomenon book too, all the methods that they were trying to figure out. Because do you know that method? Mind control. Something I've looked at a little bit, and there's still societies all over the place teaching that mind control that you can, and that's a telepathy type thought or course.
I don't think I'm familiar with that.
Yeah.
But maybe I just need more description.
At some point, you'll get familiar with it.
Yeah.
And he used it in education, elementary education. Mind control allows you to do more with your brain, get your brain more active. So, but I haven't heard in that description at all that you just comprehend, that you're speed reading, you're just reading it. Photographic memory is what I've got to figure out. And even if you have a photographic memory, do you comprehend it and understand it all at once as one page, or do you have it in your mind and then you can read through and comprehend it as you voice through those sentences? Those are just bigger questions.
Yeah.
Where we go from.
Interesting.
There's so many avenues
questions.
to go, so many tentacles to jump down.
Yeah.
Rabbit hole.
There is no end to where this conversation can take us.
Right. So,
all right,
conclude it for us. What's the end?
The end is, well, you did say a little bit of it. Don't judge other people for what they like. I think what people are saying these days is don't yuck other people's yum. But I think that might be a little bit.
I've never heard that
talking
before.
About other things.
Don't yuck other people's yum.
Yeah.
You do you.
Yeah. And maybe there are true phenomenon out there. I'm not entirely convinced, because I tend to believe that everything has an explanation. We'll figure it out someday. Skeptical. It just may take hundreds of years.
Or a healthy level of skepticism.
Yeah. But I totally agree that there are things that we haven't explanations for right now yet.
That we don't have explanations for.
We don't have.
And that's all it is. Yeah.
And that's all it is. Yeah.
The belief, and I hold that same exact belief. There is an answer for everything. We just don't know it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter to me right now that we know it. I still,
Well, yeah. It doesn't matter to me either. I
yeah,
am happy letting people have ESP and telekinesis experiences.
right.
It doesn't really affect me at all.
And even if you choose to try it someday, or feel like you've received an answer from some other brain across the room, it's okay.
Yeah.
You call it intuition. I just had the intuition you were thinking about that. It looked like you were. Well, I was. How did you know? And I said, I didn't know. Just had that feeling. Well, let's work on that feeling a little bit more and see. And just the fact we're talking is going to make a difference in what we're able to do together.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just by the volume of words that are shared, or by some other phenomenal connection that only exists based on these conversations.
Yeah. Maybe someday there won't be any true phenomenon things going on anymore. And that word will have to mean something like awesome
Like
and brilliant
this,
and not
like this amazing
unexplainable.
trail mix. This amazing trail mix that's been built.
Phenomenal trail mix.
Yeah. So, and that's the bigger question. Is there phenomenon in God's world? That supreme being, deity that is omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. Are there any phenomenon in that type of world? And
Yeah.
with the receding horizon, that certainly he's not just bored as a god, developing all this stuff and designing everything. I would think there has to be phenomenon there. That's the season 4 of The Good Place. You can't have heaven if you don't have any progress possible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
So phenomenon can't be eradicated. You can't get rid of it. You might be able to get rid of evil, but you can't get rid of phenomenon.
Okay.
Perhaps. So enjoy it. Have fun with it. It's there. Identify it. Document it. But don't worry about having to explain it or make it science. You don't have to make phenomenon science.
Unless it really interests you. Unless that's something.
And if you do create it, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's still there. Maybe you've described it fully, and if you can be the magician that can do this piece, and even develop a process so you can teach it to everybody else, that would be cool too. And that changes the world. That's why we do this, for fun, for the fun of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
That'll work.
Good.
All right. Bye now.
Talk to you later.
Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We appreciate you taking time to listen. We'd love to hear your feedback and thoughts. Please continue the conversation with us at doyouhaveaminuteconversations@gmail.com. Your participation means the world to us, and we look forward to sharing more exciting conversations with you in the future.